BTB listeners, thank you so much for checking out today's episode. Listen, if this episode inspires you, do me a favor and take 5 seconds to shoot me a like and subscribe to the podcast. There are several more exciting guests that are in the pipeline, and I just can't thank you enough for your continued support, and let's keep paying the mission forward. Remember, feedback is not rejection. It's refinement. It's an arena of opportunity for you to adapt and adjust and pivot to become the strongest version of yourself. If you're brave enough to ask for feedback, if you're strong enough to sit with feedback, and disciplined enough to act on feedback, there is absolutely no ceiling to who you can become. This podcast isn't just about hype. I love the flashy intros. I love creating the cool album art for each one of the episodes. But this is about real growth. And feedback is one of the fastest paths to get you to real growth. What are you built to be? What are you built to become? The time is now. The time is right now. You weren't built to break. You were built to be something greater. Welcome to Season 2 of the BTB Project. I'm your host, Kollman Gearhart. I was an overweight kid, one counted out, lost 100 pounds, found purpose in the pain, and turned my setbacks into a story worth telling. This podcast isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about identity, discipline, and comebacks. Getting up one more time and becoming who we're always meant to be. If you're ready to go deep, do the work, and live out what you're built to be, you're in the right place. Let's lock in, let's rise, and let's get to work. Welcome back to the BTB Project, and I am your host, Kollman Gearhart. In today's BTB Short, I want to talk about something that separates the strongest people I've ever met in my life, most successful people I've ever met, to the ones that are feeling stuck, are not able to move up the ladder the way that they'd like to. And I really think that it's important to preface today's episode is something I've had to learn the importance of and make sure that I'm applying it accordingly, because sometimes I take advice or feedback way too personal. What I've learned over the years is feedback is fuel, and it's one of the big secret weapons for growth. If you've listened to the BTB Project for a while, you know it's all about personal growth, discipline, and authenticity. But here's one truth that hits very hard. You can't become the strongest version of yourself without knowing there's areas to improve, without knowing you have to hear hard stuff about where you can adapt, where you can adjust, where you can get better. And being open to the feedback is critical to taking that next step in your built to be journey. Why does feedback matter? Let me ask you a question. How do you know if you're growing? If no one is checking your blind spots of what you can't see, how do you really know that you're growing? In previous episodes of the podcast, I've sat down with special guests, and one of those that comes to mind was Mitch Stewart, who was a former University of Washington standout, and we talked about redefining success. But what stood out the most was his willingness to be coached hard. His transition from being one of the best collegiate tennis players to the country to being a phenomenal coach was all about receiving feedback and turning it into transformation. he took his own transformation and paid it forward to help people with theirs. It's very similar to my story. Some of the things that I've heard in the past I thought was feedback was actually harsh, demeaning, difficult things I've had to reframe, reshape into making sure I can use that narrative as a positive instead of a negative in my life. And I shared in a previous episode about overcoming fear. I shared the journey of my high school tennis client who battles vocal cord dysfunction, makes it feel like he's drowning every time he pushes himself too hard. And coaching him required me to give him consistent feedback loops, not just from me to him, but from him to himself, recognizing when fear is physical, when it's mental, and learning how to name it, learning how to face it, learning through the feedback loop, he can push through those difficult circumstances he inherited physically. And it saved him from quitting tennis. It saved him from giving up on his goal. I've even talked about this when it comes to self-doubt and how it manifests in competition. It also manifests whenever we're trying to go after any goals in our life. We begin to doubt ourselves. The conversation came back to reflection. Reflection is a form of feedback. What's working? What's not working? You can't change what you don't acknowledge. So being able to tap into feedback, feedback isn't criticism. It's actually a mirror of what's going on in the present state. When you hear feedback, our ego wants to flinch, defend, or explain itself. But your ego isn't your coach. Here's the reframe. Feedback is not an attack. It's an actual audit on where you're at. Do you have friends that can speak into your life, that can see the bigger picture that you might not be able to see, to help you recognize some areas of where you can grow? It's not just about who you are. It's about how you're showing up. The type of light, the type of presence you bring into situations constantly come from days, months, years of what's happened prior to that present moment that you're bringing with you into each situation of your life. Feedback in the real world is not just from athletics or business, but being able to funnel into specific areas of your life. A very important area of my life is tennis. And in tennis, the score tells you where you stand. In life, it's a little bit harder. That's where people come in. So let me ask, do you have someone in your corner that tells you the truth? Do you seek out the truth? Do you ask for feedback? Are you engaging with other people around you to see how you're doing? Or do you just hang with people who nod and say, you're great, you're doing awesome, and just surround yourself with a bunch of people pleasers? That is on a fast track to keep you complacent in your life. I've been 1000% guilty of those types of situations. I've been a people pleaser myself. But the biggest growth in my life has been honest feedback from people around me that care about me the most. In 2025, some of the top athletes that I've been able to work with, guys and gals that are chasing their athletic dream, they crave feedback. They crave being able to do video analysis of their technique. They crave talking about a particular match or outcome that occurred and where they can improve or what they did wrong. They beg for coaching, not just because they're insecure, but because they're hungry to improve, that appetite, that hunger to be able to ask those types of questions is where a coach-player interaction becomes incredibly powerful. That's also the same type of dialogue I see in the world of business. One founder I know that has a very successful software company starts every week with the same question with his team. That question is, what did I miss last week that cost us progress? Every decision he makes, every nook and cranny of how he's positioning his business starts with a question like that each week. So what does that do? That's what allows for amazing leadership. That's humility. That's someone who's going to keep growing, not just their business, but in their personal life. So let's get practical for a second. Let's talk about some feedback hacks that work that I want you to implement into your life. Number one is ask better questions. What's something I need to hear that no one's telling me? Remember, the BTB Project was founded on an open-ended question. What are you built to be? What are you built to become? And being able to ask questions that require someone to speak into your life is a tremendous way to start with implementing more feedback. Number two is pause your defense. When someone's giving you feedback, we are so eager to curl up and posture like they're trying to come at us, that they're not for us, but against us. Instead of reacting, say, thank you. I'm going to sit with it. Whatever feedback they give you, give them the affirmation of praise for speaking into your life. They're helping you get better. People are asking questions that require you to tap into feedback. As you're positioning that in an open mind rather than defense, watch how it changes your life. Watch how that feedback loop ultimately points the finger back to you. I've said on several episodes, and one of the most powerful things I've heard is that everything is your fault, and taking ultimate accountability. Instead of being defensive, be receptive, be open to what someone has to say about where you're at in your life. Number three is journal it. Write it down. What was said? How did it make you feel? What's true about the feedback? What action can you take right now to implement the feedback that's been given? As you write it down, obviously creates neurochemistry response because you are hearing it, you are seeing it in your mind, you're writing it down to affirm it, you're writing it down to remember it, you're writing it down to create a call to action to actually do something with the feedback. And last but not least is be consistent. Feedback isn't just one thing. It's not a one-time, hey, how am I doing? And then not receive any more feedback for the next 5 years. It's a culture you build yourself around. You want to require feedback on a daily basis. This idea of getting 1% better each day. How do you get 1% better? It's through a feedback loop that allows you to see your present, to see your past, and to see your future, and to bridge the gap to incrementally get 1% better each and every day. So remember those 4 practicalities on feedback. Ask better questions, pause your defense, journal it, and be consistent. Remember, feedback is not rejection. It's refinement. It's an arena of opportunity for you to adapt and adjust and pivot to become the strongest version of yourself. If you're brave enough to ask for feedback, if you're strong enough to sit with feedback and disciplined enough to act on feedback, there is absolutely no ceiling to who you can become. This podcast isn't just about hype. I love the flashy intros. I love creating the cool album art for each one of the episodes. But this is about real growth. And feedback is one of the fastest paths to get you to real growth. So this week, let's take a risk. Let's ask someone for honest feedback we trust within our circle. Look at yourself in the mirror and don't take the feedback personal. Take it as fuel. Take it as a way to get better. That feedback loop, ladies and gentlemen, will not only change your life, but it is absolutely the prerequisite for you to change others. So every time you're receiving feedback, I challenge you to look at those same people or those people close in your circle and be the one that actually gives feedback as well. Because as you develop that type of honest circle of communication, if you develop the rapport and trust, you become someone that is actually aspirational, that can impact people's lives, that can change the trajectory of where they're at in their present. And that's the whole mission here of the BTB Project, is working through one feedback loop at a time, applying it and getting it 1% better each and every day. Listen, if this BTB short on feedback impacted you, do me a favor and like and subscribe to the BTB Project. Better yet, send this message to a family member, friend, or colleague and give them some feedback. Ask them how you're doing. Let this episode be the prerequisite to implementing feedback as practical steps to become 1% better in your life. As always, I'm proud of each and every one of you. And until next time, take care.